Welcome back to International Dyno Authority, where today we have a special import version of our dyno session to show you. Yes, all the way here from Ukraine, and I mean from Ukraine. This car started out its life in Ukraine. It was 99% built in Ukraine. It was already dynoed in Ukraine and tuned a little bit in Ukraine. They're here today. They're actually using a Ukrainian tuner here at International Dyno Authority. So he's going to be remoting in, doing some work as we walk through the tuning session. We're going to show you a little bit about this. Basically, if you look at it, it looks like a Nissan 240SX. It has a 6.2 liter LS motor under the hood. It's running on a it's a Link Voodo Pro. So that's the name of the software that they're running the engine with. So it's going to be all speed density and running off of map. And we are looking forward to showing you the progress step by step as we go through the process and bringing you up to date of this really unique imported Nissan 240SX with the LS 6.2 liter. When our customer Igor showed up here from the Ukraine, he said we already had it on a dyno doing the base settings. It made 370 horsepower in Ukraine on that dyno. Look over my shoulder here and see how much power it made in Canada on a different continent with different air, with different settings. All dynos will read this close. Like, they're not all going to read exact, but they're going to be really close. So if you made 370 horse in the Ukraine, you're making 370 horse here. Now, he's since got rid of the VVT. He's since put in a different camshaft, different computer. They got a lot of work to do, but just the point that they make pretty much the same, it makes what it makes. It's still 6.2 liters, still burning gas, still burning air, still having the same amount of atmosphere coming through. Looks good. We're getting started. So we have done a number of passes here. What's happening is we started at 370, we went up to like 400, then we went up to like 440. We're actually making 460 a few times. Now, anything after 4,500, 4,800, the engine just dies, it's popping, it's snapping, it's doing something strange. We've been doing a few tests on it. I checked each one of the cylinders. All the cylinders are nice and hot. Right at the header, coming out of the cylinder head, they're anywhere between 580 and 600 degrees, which is really good. So each one of them is firing, it's getting fuel. Do we have a couple of plugs that went bad? Possibly a couple of the plugs got hit because the RPM got high enough, the piston come up and whack the plug close. So I would say the next thing we do, make one more pass, and if it doesn't rev up again, I'm going to show you on the dyno. If it doesn't rev up again, we start looking for something physical. It doesn't sound like the cam went bad, doesn't sound like the rockers or springs, and none of that's because we hear nothing. The problem is that we're still making 400 foot-pounds right at 4,800. So it's good to there. Anything beyond there is bad. So what do you look for? You look for a breakdown of the ignition. You look for fueling issues. So maybe it's not maintaining fuel pressure, because it will rev up, but it kind of stops. So right now we're looking for some issues of some kind, and they have to be mechanical, because the tune was working really good. We'll show you the graph. So the graph, as you can see, is really good, right up to about 4,800, then it just nosedives. From this point forward, it's no good. It's done that a couple of times in a row. So if it's doing that and it's consistently doing that, something else is happening. We're going to find that out right now. So what he's doing right now is he's looking at the AFR. He's lost a pin on the AFR. Now, on a standalone computer system, one of the big disadvantages is they're not just referencing O2 sensors. They're actually running and programming from O2 sensors. They are making corrections to fuel based on what they see. So if you give it a target, let's say you gave it a target of 12.5, and it sees, oh sugar, we're going up to 13.1, it will start putting more fuel in to try and bring it back. And at the end of the pull, you're going to get a data log, and the data log is going to tell you how much percentage of change you had to make in order to bring it back to where you want it to be. Now, if your main sensor, which is your O2 sensor, your wideband, your oxygen sensor, is not plugged in, it's missing a pin, things are going to go awry very quickly. So you can see that on the data log. All of a sudden you lose your signal, engine's not going to run very good. So that's what they're doing right now. There's a pin that's actually pulled out of the plug, and that's what they're fixing. Okay, so after looking over the wiring and finding that pin on the passenger side bank wideband sensor, the O2, put the pin back in, we're back in business. Making power again, running up top again. Now, you can see, in the meantime, the tuner got scared and took some power out of it. He changed the tune to try and compensate for something physical that was happening. He can go back to where he was because it was running better. It was making 400 foot-pounds every time. It was making 440, 460 horse every time. You can see over my shoulder, he's removed a bit of timing, he's fixed a bit, and he's richened up the fueling a little bit right where it was having a problem. You can see right here, right where it was having a problem, he's added fuel. So we can go back to where we were on the tune, and he can start over and start refining again. It's good to go. Already in a standalone style computer, you can set a fueling goal. Now you have to have done all the background work ahead of time. So this is assuming that you've put in all the correct data. He's got FIC injectors, so good injectors in this. You put in all the injector data, you've got all your dead time set correct, and you've got everything else pretty much set up correctly in the computer. Now, you can set a goal. So if we look over here, we'll see the black line is the goal. And the goal, let's say, for example, we set that 12.5 AFR. The goal is set here, and the computer can read it. But what it does is also measure where it actually is, and then the red is how much it has to correct in order to bring the green down to the black where the programmer wants it to be. So after you've got this data, you can go back to the actual fuel chart, and you can go in and you can either enrich in an area or you can lean out an area. If we look at in this case, this is reading lean all the way here. And if this from 0 to 6,500, right at about 5,000, it starts to get rich. So you'd have to change your fuel chart from 0 to 5,000 so that you richened up the fuel a little bit, and then after 5,000 you'd have to lean out that area. All this red area in here, that's where you need to adjust your fueling because the computer is reading this and having to correct it to get back to where you want it by that much. As we finish up on the drift car here from Ukraine today, I want to remind you that this is a service that International Dyno Authority offers. We are set up here to give you the AFR, give you the feedback, give you the temperature, allow you to see some of the tools and some of the feedback that you need. So this tuner, while he was in Ukraine, was able to get all the live data that he needs, tune this on the Link Voodo Pro, and make a really good result, but also have the feedback that he needed to make everything work today. Alrighty, with a drift car, you're not looking for the same type of horsepower as you're looking for at a pickup truck or even a street vehicle at all. What you're looking for with a drift car, you need to break traction with the rear tires, and you need to maintain that, which means that once you build your torque curve, you've got to get there still, but once you've built it and everything above 5,000 needs to be boring and flat, because you need to make torque all the time. And if you have to let off on the throttle for a second, you need to be able to bring that torque right back again and have a nice flat torque curve. So that's what he's got with this cam. It'll still rev, which is beautiful. The heads will breathe. We've got a really good valve train in there. Then it's a matter of building a timing table that will break the tires, maintain the tires, but not overheat the engine. So too much time is going to start the flame too quickly, which is going to create heat by trying to push the piston back down, maybe make some piston rock, and that's not what we want to do. But on the dyno, of course, it looks fantastic. But out in the real world, what you'd like to do is have your fueling correct and then put the timing in it that you need to break traction. Let's take a look at this graph. As we look at this, this is a flat graph. It comes up, it's making over 400 foot-pounds of torque. Today is a perfect day for weather, but look at this graph. Just makes torque forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Eventually, the cylinder heads and the whole package is going to run out after 6,000, but in this area is right where you're going to drive a drift car. You need it to break traction and maintain its RPM, which maintains its wheel speed, but it's got to have the torque in order to break the traction and make sure that you can spin the tires and maintain a really nice curve. And look at the way the horsepower just goes up. This is a product of the cam that's in it. So it's a good cam. The cam is not trying to over rev the engine and completely kill the bottom end, but at the same time, I don't think you'd like this cam in your daily truck. All the tuning that was done here today was done via a remote tuner in the Ukraine. So he's pulling the data from the computer, he's pulling the data logs, he's looking at the dyno charts, he's looking at his air fuel, and then he's making a timing table. And here's the way it really works. When you're all set and done inside that style of computer, you have what's called a VE table. So the VE table, basically, once you have your fuel and your timing, when you think they're really, really close, you can simply increase the numbers on the VE table, and it will go into the background and pull things as it needs to. So it's a standalone style tuning, but basically you tell the computer that the engine should be not at 100% volumetric efficiency, but let's make it 105, 110, 115%, and it will start to pull the fueling, pull the timing, and make the adjustments as much as it can. Now, if you ask for 150% VE, you're never going to get it. So you have to understand the tuning, but that's the way it works. Basically, there's a chart, and it has a percentage of volumetric efficiency. And once you have everything else in place, you can simply increase the values where you think they need to be increased, and that comes down to judgment time and being a tuner in general. And that's what this guy has done. He's done it remotely from Ukraine, and you know, frankly, I didn't hear any knock the entire time, so he must have had his fueling and his timing set good enough, and especially down low, that's where an engine will knock and want to rock the piston. Worked out good.
This was amazing. We finally reached the result. We expected even more. We expected 420, we got 460. I appreciate this service. International Dyno guys are super. Recommend it. Just come here, you will not regret. Let's appreciate the work with the professionals. Thank you.